Hello everyone and welcome to today's session. I'm Darshini, your host for today, and I work as Community Marketing Specialist at Testsigma. I thank you all for taking the time to joining us today as we talk about mastering API testing with Testsigma. I would like to introduce today's speaker and presenter, Ms. Himani Mittal. Himani is a product manager at Testsigma and holds 9 years of work experience. She has been working with Testsigma for the last 1 year, and prior to this, she worked as a software engineer with Adobe for 5+ years. In her free time, she likes to indulge in yoga, and to rejuvenate, she likes to travel to different places where she gets to explore different cultures and meet new people. In my recent conversation with her on the API project, she said it was a good challenge that she got to work on. Since there are a lot of customer requirements and large set of problems to address, the team had to choose ones that will provide maximum value to the users, and at the same time, they have to ensure that the API interface is simple for anyone to start building tests from day zero. On that note, let us all get ready for the AMA session with a walkthrough of the new API testing capabilities within Testsigma. Some housekeeping notes. To keep the session more interactive, we have set up some interesting polls that will be shared during the session, and we request you all to take part in it. If you happen to have any questions during the session, please feel free to drop them in the Zoom Q&A board. Himani will answer all the questions we have received through emails during the session after the product demo. This AMA session will be recorded and the recording will be sent to you all via email in the upcoming week. Now, without any further ado, I invite Himani to take the session forward.
Hey, hi everyone. Thanks Darshini for introducing. So I'll be talking to you about API testing with Testsigma, a low-code open source test automation platform. So for those of you who haven't heard about Testsigma, I'll talk to you a little bit about the platform, and then we'll delve into the main agenda of API testing. Why is it done? The challenges that are associated with it, and what Testsigma has done about it. We'll see it in action in a demo, and then we'll move forward to our Q&A session. So Testsigma is your end-to-end test automation platform to simplify your complete testing lifecycle while ensuring that you can scale easily, but at the same time, not compromising on your delivery quality or build performance. So consider a scenario, there is a release event going on and the QA who was supposed to execute the test plan and give a go ahead is not available. Now the manager needs to step in. But what happens if the test plan fails or your test cases fails? The manager needs to know where to go into the automation code, how to debug, or maybe if they want to execute it manually, they'll need to know the workflow of it. So keeping all of these in consideration, we have Testsigma, which is a low-code platform. Here, you need not worry about setting up your infrastructure, writing a code, and how do you scale it. You can simply say navigate to my URL, record the user actions easily, and scale it across 3000 plus OS browser devices combination. For your end-to-end and integration testing need, we support different type of applications such as web, mobile, API, desktop, etc. One major pain point that automation testers have generally is that 30% of their time goes into fixing flaky tests. In Testsigma, we have AI integrated capability that tries to fix your flaky test on the go. Now that we have understood about what Testsigma is and why we have implemented it, let's see why API testing is required. Consider a search engine in a e-commerce platform. So you as a user will go to a browser, open that application and enter your search into the search field. This is your presentation layer or the UI layer. Now this search goes into the server where the business logic is implemented. Business logic will check that does the user has access to the information, how the information needs to be processed. So your server will interact with the database, get the data, and give it back to the UI. You will see it in the listing page. The interaction between client and server is done via APIs. So basically, with API, you can test your business layer, and the interaction with the client layer, but don't need to worry about how it's written at the background. Another advantage with testing business layer using APIs is you can validate it for functionality, reliability, performance, and security aspect. So let's say I want to search for an iPhone. So I should see the results related to iPhone and its product, right? So that covers your functionality and reliability part. Am I able to? Okay. All right. I'll take up the questions later. So now when you receive the responses, you check the functionality, and the reliability part is that you're receiving the right responses. Your responses are not getting mixed up with any other search query. You can check for the performance wherein thousands of requests are going in within a second. So your server should be able to handle that much of load. And obviously the security part of it. Not anyone or everyone. In fact, not anyone should be able to get into your system and access data which they're not supposed to. Another advantage of API testing is you can complete your testing cycles in short time frame. With API testing, there comes certain challenges also, like any other testing technique. So we talk to our customers, and there are a few challenges that I've listed out here. And I'm sure that you will be able to relate to some of them. So since APIs form a major part of integration, let's say you want to connect your search with your listing page, open a product view page, and then go to checkout and finally do the purchase. These are different modules, right? So to validate them, you need to build an integration test suite. And for every flow, you'll have some complex set of internal workflows and also complex set of data. Then you'll need a different tool to manage that data. So a different tool to create your API automation test and a different tool to manage your data. So that is another set of problem. Plus, since APIs don't have any visual interface, you would require some set of coding knowledge. Not everyone associated with testing has that sort of knowledge. Like if let's say PM wants to validate an API, they need not know the coding, right? They just need to invoke that API endpoint. Another thing is that 15% of total time working with APIs is spent on debugging the issues and manually verifying them. There are some more challenges that we have tried to fix with Testsigma API module. Now, before moving on to how Testsigma is implemented it, we'll launch a short poll for you. Darshini will launch that poll and we'll see what's the API testing landscape at your organization. All right. So I see that the challenges you guys have resonate with the kind of challenges we have created our module upon. Handling complex request responses format, we have parameterization for it. I'll just show you how we are doing it. Yeah, real world data volumes make sense. Maintaining API test. Yeah, all of these can be achieved percentage of users who are automating the test. Good, great to see that we all are aligned on this area. So now let's see how we have done it with Testsigma. I'll just give you a quick walkthrough. Since Testsigma is a low-code platform, and right now we have catered it for REST APIs, right? So you don't need to write any code. You can simply type in your URL, select the method that you want to hit API with, send the request. Once you receive a response, you can apply one-click assertion to it. Just click on the response and say, I want to assert the statement. You can reuse your test case against different test suits and test plans. Plus, there is a inbuilt support for data-driven testing. You can manage your data within Testsigma. You don't need to rely on outside tools. Plus, creating integration and end-to-end tests with us is really simple. I'll just show you how to do that. So before moving on to demo, I'll talk about the use case that we have picked up here and see if you guys get a hold of it. So consider a portal where the information for all airlines operating from India is available. And there are two new airlines that will start operating from India in the near future. from IGI Airport Terminal 1. The portal admin needs to update the data in the portal and validate that the website link is correct and navigating right. So how will we do it in Testsigma? One is we'll create the data set, load that data set and attach it to a test case. In the test case, we'll invoke post API. And once we receive a response, we'll validate it. From the response, we'll extract the ID that we will pass into the get API. From the get API, we'll see that for the ID that we pass, the data is correct. That is, we'll add a assertion there and fetch the website link from the response that is received and pass that website link to a UI endpoint. So basically creating an end-to-end journey and chaining the APIs, while this all will be data driven. I hope you can see my Testsigma screen. This is the portal that I'm logged into. And here you can select the project. Here is a list of projects created, or you can create new and select which application you want to work on. I have REST and web project. So I'll be selecting my web app because I want to create an end-to-end test case. You can create a new test case from here, or I have already created one. And I'll just show you how test data is created. You can either import your test data from an Excel sheet or create it in Testsigma itself. This is my sample test data, and the set name should be understandable by you so that you can iterate over them easily. Expected to fail means, let's say for an input, you expect that your test case will fail. That is, the output will be invalid, right? So for that, you can turn it on so that basically your test case will pass. And this is the information that we need to pass. Now moving on to the test case. So in the edit test case, you can see that I have attached a data profile, marked it data driven, and selected which iterations I want to work with. Then I'll show you how to add a REST API step. From the type of steps available, select REST API, click here and enter the title. Select the method. Yeah. So here I can parameterize my URL also by clicking on insert data and select what type of test data I want to apply here. So that means different type of data types, right? I can select environment type. You might have production stage, they have different types of environments, and you would want to parameterize your URL with it. So you can select it, and we have other data types as well. So I'll just copy the URL again. Okay. Here you can add parameters to your URL request, like you can see, and this is reflecting here. I can also parameterize it. Let's say I select parameter, and from the attached test data, I can select ID. You see this is getting reflected here. All right. I'll just remove this because I don't need it right now. We have different types of body type that are available. So in form data, you can attach key value. Value is also, you can also parameterize your value. Everywhere you have key value, you can parameterize it. Similarly, we have different other types. So right now I need to use my raw type. I'll just copy the response and paste it here. You have three different types of raw format that we support. So now I'll click on send and receive a real-time response, as you can see here. Now the next thing is that you will want to apply assertion, right? So click on add verification and your JSON path is automatically created. If it was XML, then we'll create a XML path automatically. Or you can scroll down here, click on the row, your path gets created, copy, and click on add verification and paste it here if you want to do that. So that is another way. We have different type of verifications available, and on expected value also you can parameterize it. Now coming to stored variables, here you click on store your variable. So it will basically create a runtime variable. That is when your test is executing in that session. Let's say from post I want to save a response, pass that into my get API, right? So that forms your runtime variable. It will be picked from stored variable list. So that was about stored variable and verification. You can do the same with headers and statuses. Also, you would want to validate your response body, right? So one is you can save your response body as an object. It will land under stored objects. All these stored objects are available here. And you can also apply verification here. So there are different types of comparison available. I can validate my response with raw stored objects. So I can select whichever object I want to compare against, select the verification type. Similarly, you can upload a file and compare it from that. Now that we have a general idea of how to create a API step, I'll walk you through the use case that I've automated in interest of time. So as we talked about, we'll first invoke a post API to register our airline. So this is my URL, and you can see the body is parameterized from test data. I've applied a verification on name and stored the airline ID website. I'll pass this airline ID in my get API. In get, you can see that this airline ID is referenced, right? And then we'll validate on the name, and then the website is stored here. The website will be passed into your UI endpoint here, and will validate that navigation is happening correct. So let me just execute a test case for you. Here you'll need to set the configuration because we have UI endpoint. So we need to select where that where that URL will open up and all the UI interactions will take place. So click on run now and wait for your test case to execute. In the background here, what's happening is the data is getting loaded, and then in the API, it's trying to read the data, apply verifications, navigate to the website, and applying the validation. So as you can see, one iteration has passed, one is still executing. Now we have completed with the execution. So one is passed, one is failed. I'll go through why is this happening. So let's just see what are the results here. You click on view detailed result. Here in body, you can see that the data is converted, and you can see the response here. What is the verification, expected and actual value, and that this passed, and what is the value of stored variable. So this is the same data that we passed from our data profile. And in get API, here you can see that the data was passed, and here we are storing the website link, which is then getting passed to your UI endpoint. So you can see your airline website link is available here. The screenshot was taken when your test case executed on UI, and similarly for the validation also. So let me just go to the failed test case. Just a moment. Yeah. So here we'll see what just happened. You can see that in the verification, it sees that expected and actual value are different. So it has marked the validation as failed. So this was done intentionally. And you'll also wonder that since this step failed, why did the other steps pass, right? So these are the settings that you can do while creating your test step. Here in my get airline info, when I go to edit mode and see the step settings panel, you see that stop test case execution is not enabled. That means I still want to go ahead with my UI validations. So that is why I unchecked it, but you can check it and like enable the settings or disable it according to your use case. So that was about how to create a API test and create an integration and end-to-end test around it. If you have to let's say import your test cases from Postman, you can also do that from imports and export section. And here you'll see all the mappings that will happen for collection folders, the APIs, how they will be mapped into Testsigma. So that was about the demo. We are good to open the session for Q&A.
Himani, we already have a question from Parmesh, so you can go ahead and answer it.
Uh, Parmesh, do you mean that you don't have the endpoint URL with you for the application that you want to validate? You can type the answer in here. But okay, so I'll just answer it on the assumption that you don't have the URL endpoint. In Test Sigma, if you have to validate a API or write the automation for it, the prerequisite is that we will need the URL endpoint. I hope that answers your question. Okay, so right now we do not have support for doing API performance testing. You can do the functional testing for us on Test Sigma, not for us. How do I convert Postman collection to Test Sigma? Okay, I'll just show this to you. So in settings section, you click on import export. Here you click on import Postman collection. Select the file that you want to import. Okay, so it could be a zip file. Basically, you can read our documentation for it. We have listed that how do you export your collection and environment variable from Postman and import it here. So once you click on import, your mappings will be displayed here. You can select which project you want to import it into, and then basically your test suite will be ready to go. So AI is helping in automating the REST API. AI is integrated for our UI modules, wherein you have flaky test due to, let's say you cannot find the element has tail exception. So there we have integrated AI, not in REST API module.
I'll read out the questions so that the rest of the participants can also hear it out. So the next question is there any features for creating environment and access environment variables in API?
Yeah, right. We do have that feature. The one I just demoed to you, you can go into your environment section. Yeah, here you can see I've already created one environment. So let's say I have created this one, right? URL. You can similarly create other types of environment like airline, stage, production, etc. And you can go into your test case. Here, select the URI, select the environment, and there you go. This is how you create environment and attach it to your API URL. I hope that answers it. Can we integrate API with UI in a functional? Yeah. The whole demo was about it. So wait, I'll just show you my use case. Here you see that these are the API steps, right? And then these are the UI step. So plus what I'm also doing is in my API, I'm fetching the website link. You see, this is the website link, this is the variable. And in the UI, I have passed it, navigate to your UI and then validate. One thing I forgot to show you was that you can also, once you execute your test case, you can also watch the video for UI, that what was happening on the UI interaction side. So here you can see the video is ready. You click on it and you see the browser is launched, and then it will navigate to the link that was passed from API to UI. So yeah, you can do that integration as well. Okay. How to store access token in environment variable and not in stored variable. Um, Pratik, what do you mean that you want to store access token in environment variable? Generally, it's basically created dynamically, right? And if you want to store it into environment variable, although that is like bearer token. Yeah, for that again you have authentication API which generates your bearer token and then you pass it into your next API request. But still, if you want to store it in environment variable, you just go to environments and in there add a key. named access token and add the token that you just generated. So it's the same way. I just showed you how to create an environment variable. Can you show the demo? Um, okay, fine. I don't have any access token with me, but here you can enter one more key, parameter name access token, store any value in here and update it. So what will happen is whichever environment you link your API test with, it will pick all the key and value with it. So if you just want your access token to be picked up, you need to create a different set of environment variable. Although again, that is not something that you should generally practice, but depends on what kind of token you have. Okay. Any other questions we have?
Himani, we have received a couple of questions from the email. So I'll be just reading them out to you. You can answer them. Just a minute. So the 2 or 3 questions that we can take up for now is, can Testsigma be used to test APIs that are developed using different programming languages and frameworks?
Okay. So Testsigma doesn't depend on what programming language are you using or what framework are you on. We just need that you are automating a REST API. So for that we need a correct method. So post, get, patch, etc. The correct URL to hit your API. That is all we need. And since REST API work on HTTP protocol, so your API should be built on it. So that is the all requirement that we have.
Okay, just a minute. The other questions that we are receiving are, how does Testsigma handle authentication and authorization for API tests?
Yeah, okay. So that's a good one. I'll just show that. In the you can see my screen, right? In the authorization section, what you can do is select which type of authorization you want to apply. So whatever type of authorization you have, you just click on the right hand side panel, click on this field, and then either enter the value directly, or again you can pick it from the parameters, like Pratik was talking about environment, right? You can pick it up from here. You can see that access token is available. So that is how you can do that. And to another question, can we directly import Postman collection test Sigma? I have already shown the demo for it, so I'm marking it done. And yes, we can do it from the imports export section. Any other questions, Darshini, we want to take up right now?
Yeah, we have like one last question we can take. Can Testsigma integrate with other testing tools or CI/CD tools?
Oh yes, so that is very easy. We have CI/CD integration available. You can basically integrate it with any tool, and this will run in your pipeline. So you don't need to worry about how do you set it up.
Okay, I think we are, almost we have answered the questions. So guys, if you have any more questions, please let us know right now. We'll be closing the Q&A board shortly. We have another question. API can be authenticated using API tokens as well. How are you securely stored in the system? How are they securely stored in the system?
So I think you mean in Test Sigma system. So basically, one is that you have authenticator API. So the question might be around how do you securely store the token here. So basically, we encrypt it internally. It's not like Test Sigma can read those token, and once you need to pass it in your another endpoint, it will be decrypted. But nothing can be read in Test Sigma internally.
Okay, we'll finish off with the 2 questions that are already posted here. So the the last final question will be, Testsigma only runs on cloud, right? Or can it run on my server?
Testsigma has different types of versions available. So one is the cloud version, one is open source. And if you want to run it on server, then there's an on-prem version also available.
Okay, and the last question will be, may I ask if you can show us a demo on how to set up CI/CD using Testsigma?
I do not have the complete end-to-end setup to show the demo right now, and plus we are short on timeline. This is something that our pre-sales or solutions team can take up. We can reach out to you and show a demo.
John, we'll set up a personalized demo for you if you're interested. We can take it up post the session. Okay, we are closing the Q&A for now. Okay, now that we have covered all the questions, Himani, is there anything else you want to cover before we wrap up?
We are almost done, and it was a quite an interactive session. So I'm really happy about it. And if you guys have any feedback around our portal, so please feel free to reach out to us or go ahead, schedule a demo with us. We'll be happy to take your feedback in. And for any other questions, do reach out to us on email.
Great. Thank you everyone for participating, and we really appreciate your presence here.
Thanks everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you everyone.
Have a good weekend. Bye.